Hi, Anton.
Hi. So, wait lang muna tayo siguro saglit for a bit para dumami yung mga yung mga audience natin, and then let's start.
Siguro while waiting, no, let's inform all those who are already online and viewing this live stream. We have a discount code for those who wish to purchase their art materials at the oil paint store. Ito siya, posted it here. And you can also look this up sa mga Facebook groups natin, no?
Yeah.
Hi, Belay. Shout out.
Hi, Malay. Medyo choppy ba ako?
Medyo. Pero okay lang naman. Siguro those who are already watching this live video, you may share this on your wall or sa ibang mga page na you think would benefit from viewing this today's discussion. And also don't
Yeah.
forget, no, yung mga works ng mga printmakers natin are posted and live on sale sa cartelino.com until tomorrow. So you still have a chance to view the artworks of our printmakers.
Yeah, share ko din. Share ko sa wall ko.
Ayan. Good morning, Sir Ricky. Ayan, share.
Good
Thank you very
morning.
much.
Yay.
Uh, a few more minutes lang, no? We're just waiting for the others to catch up so we can start.
Yeah. May Q&A portion pala tayo mamaya. So, kung may maisip kayong questions, jot it down na lang, and then... Hi, Sir Benj.
Good morning, sir. Magandang discussion natin today, no? So, sana madami pang maka-attend. Well, anyway, for those who will not be able to attend, siguro they have other tasks or activities for today. Yun namang videos natin will still be available after nitong live stream natin today. So again, you can still share for the others to view this.
Ayun. Tapos, I want to plug also the next talk that's happening after this, which is entitled Expanded Printmaking. It's gonna be hosted by ay, si Ambia Banyo, Johari Said, and sino yung isa, no?
Tikitikong
Virgilio.
Tilok Watanotay from Thailand. and of course si Johari from Malaysia. I think that will be a roundtable discussion yata. Expanded printmaking too. Two kasi yung interesting, yung first one kasi napanood ko rin siya. Very interesting discussion din. Si Ambi yung nag-moderate for that, for the first part of that expanded printmaking topic. Ayan, so mamaya may mga invited guests. That's at 2 o'clock. If you haven't registered yet, hindi kasi siya na ila-livestream lang sa Facebook, no? Ano siya, kailangan niyo mag-log in or mag-register para sa Zoom, dun sa event na yun. So yung Zoom link, I think naka-post na rin doon sa mga Facebook groups natin para makapag-register kayo before 2 p.m.
Yeah.
And I think Johari's watching. Hi.
Hi, Johari. Pero ba't parang iba yung apelido niya?
Ay, ibang Johari. Hi.
Okay. Hi, Johari.
Kasama, Johari would be part of the discussion later.
Yes.
With Kitikong and Ambi. Hi. It's good to see you here. All right. So
maybe we can start.
Anton?
Yeah. So good morning. My name is Anton Villaruel.
Hi everyone. Ako po si Hershey Malinis.
And we are members of the Association of Pinoy Printmakers.
Yeah, we would like to welcome everyone and thank you for attending this event today. Dalawa yung event natin today, no? Yung sinabi namin is the other one for the 2 p.m. And we will be the moderators for this morning's event.
Okay. So, welcome to Pressing Matters, Printmaking and Activism. Hershey, yung narinig mo yung title na sinabi ko, ano yung naisip mo bigla?
Actually, nung in-invite mo ako mag-co-moderate, ang una ko naisip, ano kaya yung topic na i-discuss dun sa day na napili mag-co-moderate ako sa yun. Oo, kasi siguro sana interesting siya, no? Well, throughout the week naman, no, it's our 7th week today. Pero very interesting naman lahat ng naging topics. If you haven't seen those other videos before, yung mga previous days, you can still see them sa Facebook groups natin, no? Pero nung nadinig ko yung title natin, Pressing Matters, parang sabi ko, wow, okay, siguro ang topic natin would be something about printmaking in relation to social relevance. Siguro past and present ito, no? Pati future kasama dito sa discussion natin today.
So, to set the tone of the topic for today, is a very, very important printmaker who just recently passed away. His name is Neil Doloricon, and we want to give tribute to his life and work through this video produced by Jamie Turla. Please watch this.
Ako si Neil Doloricon, isang visual artist. Academically, marami talagang definition ng ang art. Pero basically, yung art, sinasabi nga nila, it imitates life. Forming in different shapes and forms, no? Na based dun sa sinasabi nating imagination ng tao. So, essentially, ano yan, part ng buhay ng tao. Dahil malungkot ang mundo pag walang sine. Trabaho ka lang ng trabaho. Hindi naman, di ba? Talungkot. Sabi nga ni Picasso, ano rin yan, no? Instrumento ng gera. No? Hindi lang sa dekorasyon, kundi instrumento sa digmaan. So, maaaring totoo, no? Na yun pala, yung sine, pwede mong gamitin sa pagbabago ng lipunan. Masasabi ko lang siguro, lahat naman ng effort ko na magtaguyod ng makabuluhang sining, ano yan, dumaan yan sa yung parang collective work, no? Sa paglikha halimbawa ng isang propaganda. ano yan, masasabi kong nilaho ka ng maraming artista. No? At ito, halimbawa yung mga nilikha naming mural ng panahon ng Marcos, no, sa ilalim ng batas militar ni Marcos, yung mga naglipa ng mural no, sa mga malalaking pagkilos laban sa diktadura. Mimistulang gallery yung lansangan, no? Dahil sa mga malaki ang pagkilos ng laban sa diktadura, nagagamit yung mural paintings laban sa rehimen ni Marcos. Yung artist dapat sensitibo ka sa paligid mo. At kasi kung titingnan mo sa kasaysayan, ang naging role talaga ng artist yung non-conformist yan, no? Yung naghahanap lagi kung ano yung norms, sisirain niya yung norms at kailangan makapag-establish ng bago. Na dapat yung kung anong mapagbabagong ninanais mo, naglilingkod hindi lang sa iyo bilang artist, kundi naglilingkod sa nakararami. Wala ka namang di alam na sandata kung hindi yung sining mo. So gamitin mo na yung sining na sa kilusan ng pagbabago. Kasi wala namang kwenta yung di ba? Parang ang pinaglalaban mo lang paano ko sumikat, parang di ba? Napaka selfish na, di ba? Tendency naman 'yon. Maglingkod dun sa nakikita mong saan ka makakatulong. Katulad nung kung paano lumalaban yung mga magsasaka at manggagawa o mga urban poor, etc. Pero ano na rin, ganun talaga. Pag hindi ka maingay, hindi ka papansinin So dapat, di ba? Walang pwedeng diyan. Hindi ka pwedeng mamalimos diyan. Kailangan ilaban mo yung rights mo. Yung engagement ka ng tao dun sa sining, di ba? Paano mo siya kumbaga sa pagkain, paano mo ninanamnam, di ba? Kailan visual lang ito. In fact, maglalaro talaga ang imagination mo. Iba yung fulfillment na makukuha mo. No? Refreshing, no? Relaxing, in fact. No? Ang hindi nagbago sa akin, yung paniniwala ko na kailangan gamitin pa rin sining sa tunay na pagbabago na naglilingkod sa nakararami.
Very nice video and also very nice message din coming from Sir Neil Doloricon. Pinakatumatak siguro sa isip ko is yung message niya na yung sining dapat ginagamit para manilbihan sa nakararami. It's a very nice message. So,
siguro pasalamatan din natin, Anton, yung nag-share ng video sa atin yun for us to air it today.
Her name is Janie Turla. Siya yung nag-produce, tsaka sa kanya ako nagpaalam para mapalabas natin yung tribute video ni Sir Neil.
Iksi lang ng video pero malaman siya, no?
Yeah. So anyways, ayun, moving forward. And what do we have today, Hershey?
Okay, so leading from that video, no, tugmang-tugma siya doon sa tema nung magiging discussions natin today. So we invited two distinguished guests, speakers for today. But before that, Anton?
Ayun, so mamaya pag habang nanonood kayo, we encourage discussions. So as much as possible, maybe when you're watching the speakers and hear their talks, try to think of questions already and jot them down. Jot them down siguro, sulat nyo sa papel, and then later on, maybe we can, pwede nating ibato sa mga speakers yung mga questions ninyo that na magkakaroon din naman tayo ng ng Q&A portion. So, pwede yung itanong yung mga questions during this portion.
So if anything comes into mind during the discussion, just ilagay niyo sa chat box sa natin, sa Facebook natin, wherever platform you're watching or whichever page you're using, ilagay niyo lang doon. Tapos we have some support staff na magpo-post din ng questions na yun dito for us to address it later on.
Yes. Okay. So now, for our first speaker for today, he has made a huge contribution to the printmaking community in our country. He is a former president of Art Association of the Philippines. He also started a workshop in Baguio in 1978 to 1986, the Mariposa Workshop in Cubao in 1990. Also a former director of the CCP Visual Arts Coordinating Center, and was able to get a grant from France for equipment that would later start our print workshop for the AP, where he is now currently a board member. During this time as CCP director, he was able to send Benji Cabrera and Phil de la Cruz to Paris on a grant to study printmaking. He has worked in Spain and France as an edition printer for noted artists in Madrid and Paris in 1973 to 1976 through an edition house called Grupo 15. A 2018 Gawad Tanglaw ng Lahi awardee to talk about Likha, art as social commentary. Let's all welcome Sir Pandy Virgilio Aviado.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to talk about.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Morning, Hershey.
Good morning, sir.
Can we start with the slide with the first image? Yeah. I'm going to talk about this folio of postcards, and half of that will also be some of the prints which I think belong to this lecture. In his introduction to this portfolio, the writer Eric Torres wrote, "Art as social comment has engaged the serious attention of some of the best artists of all times." Now, what instantly comes to mind are such prominent figures as Francisco de Goya and his etchings of the disasters of war. We have William Hogarth, who made an etchings. It's entitled Rake's Progress. We have the Frenchman Honoré Daumier, the German Kathy Kolowich, and George Gross. And in America, we have the Mexican trio composed of Diego de Rivera, Jose Clemente Orozco, David Alfaro Siqueiros. And in the USA, we have artists like Ben Chan, Rico Lebron, Jacques Levine, and let's not forget Picasso and his famous Guernica. Social comment in the visual arts covers a wide range of media, from studio paintings to mural paintings to the graphic arts, to drawing, to journalistic illustration, and editorial cartoons and posters. The artist, as social critic, acts as a gadfly on the thick hide of the smug and self-deluded. Unsurprisingly, such art emerges whenever unspeakable crimes are committed against human dignity and forces of oppression. Such is particularly the case in a third world countries like ours, where human rights are trampled, masses of people suffer from neo-colonial conditions and go hungry. And the idea of nationalism remains an issue far from being settled. So instead, it reminds every man of another role artists have assumed through the ages as a means to re-examine his perception of reality, prick his conscience, trouble his sleep. It challenges him to take sides. Artists become social critic by raising such questions as what really constitutes the true, the good, and the beautiful? True, good, beautiful, for whom? Artist as social critic asks as a gadfly on the thick hide of the smug and the self-deluded. Art revives every man's sense of community. A community that drives in the graphic works of the mixed 60s generation of artists. It spills in the streets in form of tarpaulins, posters, and now social media. Last but not least, in etchings and lithos, it has become a familiar guidon of the growing citizens' concern for the fate of democratic institution this side of the Southeast Asia. But the artist should not be concerned with politics according to conventional wisdom. He should rise above it and leave it to the politicians. Nothing could be more widely off mark, for the artist is a citizen, and what concerns the communal life and welfare of the citizen also concerns the artist. You know, politics is too important to leave to the politicians, particularly those who manipulate the masses to arrogate power to serve selfish ends. The concerned artist knows that he has what it takes to combat repressive immoral forces. That proverbial sensitivity to forms and colors, light and shadow, and the expressive resources of this craft serve him well in bearing witness to his time and in producing results which are the envy of his counterpart, meaning the journalist. And the journalist who knows only too well that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Thank you. I'll start the slide. The first slide first, sorry. This is an etching by national artist Ben Cobb. It was done right after the declaration of martial law. It's an aquatint, line etching and aquatint, and as you can see from the actual print, it is the best print I've ever seen so far. Next. This is a portrait of a worker by Biboy de Lotavo. Next. And this one is by Pablo Bain Santos in 1984. This is by Bogie Ruiz. As you can see, it's an iron fist, you know, forcing its way to the masses. Next. This is a woodcut I made in 1965. And it was already during Marcos' time, but it was in the first time Marcos won the presidency. And whenever I would go to school, I would pass by UP and I would see along the Vincent's Hall, I would see several speakers, you know, denouncing the government. And so I thought that would be a nice woodcut. Next. This is a work by Boy Rodriguez. It's about Gabriela. And it's you hardly see women in art as warriors. And this is the first time you can see that I think this is where Gabriela got their name. Next. This is Proclamation 1081. It's an etching by Ben Cobb. It's one of the most used image about martial law. It's an etching. This is Ang Kyokok. Ang Kyokok is another national artist. He is a very quiet and private guy, but in his works, he depicts struggling citizens. And here, this is a very rare Madonna and Child, because as you can see, it's not the peaceful kind of Madonna and Child. They are shouting out for help. Next. This is a mural done by Buklod Sining, and it's because then there were no tarpaulins then, they would paint and they would unroll this, and this was shown during the first demonstration against the Marcos regime right after Ninoy was killed in 1983. Next. This is but Marcha ng Bayan. This is by Egay Fernandez, and as you can see there on the top, there's the confetti and the people marching. And this wasn't even the people power yet. I mean, this was just it was just about to begin. And before you know it, people were marching in the street, marching in EDSA. Next. This is by Jess Abrera. Jess Abrera used to be an illustrator. It's a Philippine Daily Inquirer. And this is one of the drawings that is contrary to what the Imelda says about the true, the good, and the beautiful. Next. This is done by Nonoy Duran. He was my student in UP in 1978. And he was one of those imprisoned. And he made an etching out of the view that he could see from his cell. And because he was haunted by that sight, it was this etching that he was able to outgrow the pain caused by his incarceration. It was sort of a therapy for him. This is an etching I made. It's a homage to Evilio Javier. Evilio Javier was a schoolmate of mine in Ateneo. And in 1986, he ran to be a governor of Iloilo, and he was gunned down, and he was shot, just like Ninoy. Next. This is an etching I made in 1971, and this depicts it's an etching on copper, and on the middle you can see a deep etch embossed without any ink is the face of William Saunders. William Saunders, as you very well know, is the name of Marcos, Ferdinand Marcos. And then he's in between two skulls. And for me, I feel that one is Nalundasan, the first guy he killed. And the second one is Ninoy. So these are two famous things that Marcos was famous for killing these two guys. Anyway, this was done in 1971, and Ninoy was killed in 1983. So this was like preempting what would happen. And the funny thing was that this was featured in a book, and it has, well, to make a long story short, Malacanang saw it and they didn't like it. So the writer, Yoni Benessa, warned me that this artwork, this particular etching is not favorable to Marcos. Next slide. This is not the print, but this was what happened during the opening of the CCP in 1969. Printmaker Mars Galang, David Medalla, and Jun Lansang went up on the second floor of CCP, and they had this signs. Mars Galang saying, "We want a home, not a fascist tomb." And then David Medalla, "Abba, la mystification, down with Philistines." And then since Reagan was there, Governor Reagan, during the opening, Jun Lansang has this sign which says, "Reagan, go home." And they were manhandled because of this event. And very few people know what really happened during that time. Next slide. This is by Aster Texon. Aster Texon was an artist who died last year, and he came up with so many posters that were quote unquote anti-American. The funny thing was that later on he went to settle in America. Next slide. This is a dry point by Evelyn David. Evelyn David came here in 1985 and studied printmaking with us in Baguio. And this is entitled Cadena de Amor. On the top, you can see somebody planting rice, and on the other one, on the lower part, you can see somebody tying a yellow ribbon on barbed wire. And I guess okay, I have some more. Next, this is a dry point engraving on plexiglass, which I was doing in early 1980s. The title of this is "Once a Rebel, Always a Rebel." Next. This was an etching I did, and the title of this is Budong. It's a peace offering in Baguio, the mountains where I used to stay. And as you can see on the background, there's the AK-47, which has replaced the spears of the Igorots. Next. This is an etching by a colored etching by Ben Cab, and it shows two ladies wearing Walkman and TV and watching the yellow revolution. Next. The night before, it's an etching on copper. I did this in 1986, and I displayed it once in a gallery many years after, I think sometime in the 90s. And then one of the daughters of Marcus saw it and wanted to buy it, and said that it reminded her of that night when they were held hostage there in Malacanang, just before they left for Hawaii. Next. This is a woodcut, a wood block I made. It's an Uzi and spears printed over a Philippine flag. Next. This is viscosity print by Ophelia Halbeson Tequi. She was a neighbor of mine in Paris, and she is the best expert, or the expert on viscosity print. Next. This is an etching by Santi Bose. Santi was a student of mine at the UP Baguio when I had a workshop, and he made several impressive etchings. He's one of the best etchers I've seen so far. Next. This is an etching, a colored etching of Brenda Fajardo. She's one of those leading printmakers then. Next. This is a lithograph, stone lithograph, which I did. And I showed it at the first 13 Artists show. I did it in Spain under the litho master Dimitri Papageorgiou. And it's about the Molotov cocktail. And I was trying to be inspired by Jasper Johns and his pop lithographs, pop art lithograph. Next. This is an etching by Anna Fair. Anna Fair is one of those active printmakers in the 80s. Next. This is by Benji Torrado Cabrera, master printmaker. And this is a colored etching Dan Alapupay. Next. Another etching by Benji Cabrera. Next. This is another aquatint of Benji Cabrera. Next. And during the time at the PAP workshop in Bocobo, there was this artist who was always doing anti-martial law prints, and his name is Edwin Castillo. Irwin. That's another etching. Orly Castillo. Sorry, Orly Castillo. And these etchings were really well done. It's done on zinc. It has aquatint, and it sold very well among the OFWs. Now you can see that it was prints that was making a lot of. It was bringing a direct message, unlike paintings, because paintings could easily be censored, and during those days, galleries would only accept nice paintings. But because of prints, he was able to sell them to OFWs or foreigners, and this was a great example of the martial law, anti-martial law etchings. Thank you. I think that's the end of my lecture. I hope those images disturbed you, because that's the whole idea.
Ayun. Thank you, Sir Pandy. Nakakabusog yung images, no?
Oh, yeah, really.
Ang dami niyang laman, sir, kahit hindi natin masyadong explain, even without that text na kailangan mag-accompany sa kanya, it already explains a lot
Right.
individually. So, let me just pull up my notes. Siyempre, sir, nag-notes ako. Ayan po, no? So, as Sir Pandy mentioned, no, dun sa slides na nakikita natin, kasi usually we as printmakers or maybe as an artist, we would zoom in automatically sa artwork just looking at the techniques. Pero this time, as discussed by Sir Pandy, no, he mentioned that art and an artist per se can also be a social critic at very visible yun din sa mga artworks na pinakita ni Sir Pandy kanina. So, he started with sabi mo, Sir Pandy, favorite work mo to or best work na nakita mo yung kay Sir Ben Cab, yung Likha?
Yung flag, Philippine flag.
Ayun. So, very strong, no? Intro pa lang ni Sir Pandy din, no? We can see the Philippine flag, and then slowly, each slide showing us whatever was happening during that time, whatever was present during the time of the artist. Kasi iba-ibang panahon din po, no? Nagsiskip-skip. Merong iba na pumupunta 70s, tumatalon tayo 60s, 80s. But we can already see kung ganong kalakas yung imagery. At saka yung, well, basically yung opinion, or kung hindi man opinion, yung truth nung panahon na yun para din sa mga artists. So those were made very visible and hindi siya literally na vocally explained, no? Pero nakita natin dun sa images natin. Ayun. So, mapansin ko kasi, sir, doon, no? One of the works, yung Marcha ng Bayan, na
kay Egay.
Kahit wala yung full human figure, nandun
right.
Even that part of having the confetti, siguro kahit wala yung title mismo, sir, mararamdaman mo kung anong panahon nangyari yun.
Right.
Kasi the confetti itself, it already explains a lot. It's already a representation of something. Ang lakas din yung nung dating, sir. Ayun. Kasama po dun yung ibang mga na-notes ko lang, sir, no? Yung isa yung sa Taghirap by Jess Abrera.
Yeah.
Tapos nasa foreground yung bata na naka medyo distorted rin yung positioning niya. Na I think parang payat ba yung bata doon?
Yeah.
Yung itsura niya doon. So again, strong imagery. And of course, the truth for the artist of that time. So basically, dun sa sinabi ni Sir Pandy kanina for intro, art as a social commentary, it's not just one medium. All media can be used for social commentary. And we as printmakers, nakita natin yun, no? Ang aga as early 60s, may nakikita na tayo ng image na pinakita ni Sir Pandy na nagpa-present na ng truth yung mga printmakers natin even as early as the 60s. Or siguro even before pa, wala lang siguro tayo, sir, documentation or images for those.
Yeah.
Ayun po. So, ayan. So, as a closing state, hindi naman closing no, words na sa tingin ko, no, printmakers have strongly made their marks in the social commentary even without the textual accompaniment from the 60s hanggang ngayon sa panahon na to nakikita natin ngayon. Pero Sir Pandy, na-interest ako nung pinakita mo yung work mo na Assassin, tapos kinuwento mo na nag-comment yung Malacanang about it.
Yeah.
Pero siguro later, sir, pag-usapan natin, ano yung naramdaman mo nung nag-comment yung Malacanang about your work?
I was in Paris then, and I was to go back home. And that particular print was part of that book of Leone Benessa. And so dahil hindi pa natin alam na prophetic pala yung na yon, yung etching na yon, I said that was just a skull I copied from Da Vinci. Yon. It was only afterwards, it was only afterwards that I would realize that dalawa yung pinatay ni McCoy na which was really known. Ano? Una si Nalondasan, binaril niya sa bintana. He was acquitted later sa Supreme Court by Laurel. Chief Justice Laurel said, this guy is good. So they let him off. But this print was quite, I sold a lot of this because of that controversy. I think it was also the ambassador, Luis Gonzalez, the Spanish ambassador, the Philippine ambassador to Spain, who bought one of this and said that he was going to reserve this for his own, when he's not busy, he will look at it and analyze it. There's also something written on top, which says that, there was something about Marcos going on for several years unless he dies of an assassin's bullet. Andun sa taas. Anyway, these prints are all in the Facebook post of AP, so they could look at it again.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Pandy. Ang ganda na sinabi mo rin, sir, dun sa part na nung print mo na yun na madaming prints, madami kang edition po ba yun na nabenta or siguro nakakalat siya ngayon, ang daming may-ari. No?
In fact, wala na ako. Wala na ako, naubusan.
Wala ka na, sir, copy. Pero di ba, it's an advantage din of printmaking. Kaya talagang ang galing gawing socially relevant yung works kasi yung sobrang accessible ng prints. Sobrang accessible. Kasi you can do editions talaga. Talagang madami yung maaabot ng printmaking.
Unlike painting, ang painting kailangan you can do a painting that's against the a protest painting. But the thing is that who will see it? Unlike prints, a lot of people could see it and could buy it, Yeah.
Isang magandang advantage kasi yun ng printmaking.
Pati nga yung si Irene, binili yung isang print ko. I was telling kanina, yung the night before, nakita niya, sabi niya, this is what I felt. Sabi ni Irene, during that, kasi binobomba niya ng Malacanang. They were strafing it. And they were panicking. Si McCoy nga went on live TV and said, my family is panicking. Please stop that.
Diba, monitor pa ni Sir Pandy pati sino yung nakakabili ng works. Ang galing, no? Ang tagal na nun tapos. So I wonder ang dami na rin sir na-reach ng ano mo, ng
Yeah.
artwork mo as social commentary.
One of those, one of the, yung that assassin, many artists exchanged also. I remember si Claudio Bravo, he's a very famous Chilean portraitist. When he saw that, he wanted it. Antonio Saura of Spain said, give me one of those. Yeah. Kasi maganda rin eh. I mean, looking at it, aside from the meaning, it was well done. Tsaka yung ano, yung embossed, yung para siyang ano eh, yung pera. Di ba yung pera natin, gaganunin mo, and then there's that embossed thing. That was how I wanted it to, ano. I made a lot of proof of that, and the only one that worked was hindi ko nilagyan ng tinta. So it was, it looked like it was multo, ghost,
Naka-blank.
blank, yeah.
Ayan, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Madidinig pa natin yung madami pang mga kwento ni Sir Pandy. Siyempre, ang dami ng experience niya. Magkukwentuhan pa tayo later kapag dating natin doon sa question and answer portion natin. So guys, don't forget to comment your questions dun sa Facebook. Kung saan man kayo nanonood ngayon sa Facebook, i-comment nyo na yun. A-address natin sila lahat. So thank you again, Sir Pandy. We'll move now to our next presenter. So, Jose Santos Ardivilla, or Chong as he is called by many, is a political cartoonist and printmaker. He is an art assistant professor at the University of the Philippines College of Fine Arts. He has been part of several exhibitions wherein his art tackles political commentary. Chong's research work deals with popular art and visual culture. He's currently a Fulbright Shed Scholar pursuing a PhD in Fine Arts at the Texas Tech University. Here to talk about the multiple images and the movement of politics, Chong Ardivilla.
Mayong gabi, good evening from Texas. Good morning in Manila, Philippines. And before I start, I'd like to thank Sir Pandy for that really interesting slideshow. And I would like to say that Sir Pandy is really a mentor of mine, of ours. And also, thank you for being this staunch witness to history. So, let me just share my screen for. Oops. And so before I start, can I clarify if if you can see my screen, my slideshow?
Yes, clear.
Thank you. Right. So again, good evening. Good evening from Texas. So my name is Jose Ardivilla. I would like to extend my gratitude to the organizers for inviting me to speak in this series of discussions about the power and prevalence of printmaking. Today, I shall be discussing the implications of prints and how the print culture has formed tracks of civilization and how prints are sources of destabilizations. Welcome to my talk entitled The Multiple Image and the Movements of Politics. I am a political cartoonist and a printmaker as well. I have studied how prints can document the changes of events. However, I have to say that this talk is not a simple survey, but I shall present evidence on how printmaking has induced transmissions of ideas, transpositions of people and power, and transformations of history and in history. I use the word movement because I do not intend to glorify and wax Homeric. Although prints have been present in revolutions, I would also include that movements need not be grand or spectacular. Movements can be shifts or be quiet pauses, and sometimes both of them can overlap. Like this particular etching with Shinkole print by the German printmaker Kat Kollwitz. You can see the anguish of the mother's crumpled face onto the body of the child she's cradling. What is distressing here is that the body of the mother, the one who is alive, seems to have decomposing textures, whereas the dead child has a porcelain-like sheen that would have been meant to represent the vitality of youth, but now gone. This print was made in 1903, and yet this image can still resonate to 21st century Philippines, particularly with the images that we see amongst those who are victims of extrajudicial killings. And that is one paramount power of printmaking, the way it transmits image and communicates its intention as well as its messages. Kat Kollwitz was an old woman, and she still irritated Adolf Hitler. Her prints showcase the horrors of sacrificed bodies in the name of the fatherland, Germany. In her prints, she showcased the horrors of poverty and war. She focused on the working class. In this print entitled The Parents, two figures collapse together in mourning after the loss of their child. This loss resonates with Kat Kollwitz because she lost a son during World War I. In the interregnum period leading before World War II, when Germany was suffering in humiliation of defeat and economic distress, which eventually led to the emergence of some populist leader named Adolf Hitler. So we have this connection with the rise of populism and fascism. And Hitler knew the power of images and of multiple images. He used those on screen as well as on paper or print. Kat Kollwitz, she is one of the artists in which was included in the exhibition organized by the Nazi Party to show what is degenerate art. Her being critical against Hitler was deemed as detrimental to the health and glory of the nation. This is just one woman whose traumas have compelled her to make prints of suffering. She spoke up with her prints and she was vilified for it. Sounds very familiar. This is one movement allowed by printmaking to make the personal also the political. However, it would be remiss of me to talk of the origins of printmaking. I am old enough to remember history books that they mentioned it was the European Gutenberg to have invented the printing press. This is wrong. He introduced the printing press, but it was the Chinese who innovated for the movable type centuries before him. And the power of printmaking is evident in the empire building of China. For centuries, printmaking has made it possible to generate paper currency, decrees, literature to spread far and wide and entrench the empire. In my next slide, I shall show you a contemporary Chinese printmaker who shows the movement of politics via multiple images. This is a screenshot of an animation piece by Sun Sun. The artist, born in China in 1980, uses relief prints and would render them as animation. One print is one shot, the next movement is another print. This is an extensive work, but I show this for two reasons. One, Sun's work are tethered or tied to the past. He sources his images from old Chinese paintings and prints. Two, even though this is printmaking, works on paper, he managed to extend that into the realm of animation. This demonstrates the adaptability of printmaking. I know this event is organized on the brackets of traditional fine art hand-pulled prints. What I am saying is that this is just one aspect of this art form that shows no signs of dying just yet. But going back to the history to show episodes on the power of prints, this is an engraving by Theodore Debris after Jacques Lemoyne de Morges in 1591, entitled The Natives of Florida Worship the Column Erected by Captain Ribault. This is a perfect example on how printmaking built, expanded, and sustained empires. This is how a white colonizer depicts the encounter between the natives and their work. In this case, the very European column, with a coat of arms, while the natives are depicted as worshiping it in supplication. Multiple images, such as this one, spread throughout Europe or the Old World, and to depict, or dare I say, misrepresent, docile, eager natives that are clearly at awe of their magnificence. Printmaking allowed multiple images to create this imagined world for the taking. These multiple images entrench the notion of us versus them, which is the very framework of colonialism and resource extraction. Speaking of imagination and narratives, print culture has allowed the proliferation of works to sustain empires. Now, this particular print is interesting. I saw this at the New York Metropolitan Museum. I was at the Asian wing, which is a very problematic wing in the first place, wherein all Asian works are just clumped together. I was looking for the Philippines, and I was at the point of giving up when I was just walking towards a hallway, and I saw this at the hallway. This was it. There were, I think, 4 or 5 artworks from the Philippines, and one of them is print. So this is an engraving of a hagiography, or the life of a saint or a blessed named Felipe de Jesus. Sorry. This scene is that of the Blessed Philip at the port of Manila while dock workers unload the goods. The story goes that he worked as a merchant in Manila before suffering martyrdom in Japan. This print for me is very important, not just because Manila is depicted here, but this is proof on the importance of Manila itself in the earlier form of globalization of international markets and exchange. Printmaking and the multiple image are among the goods that serve the empire. However, this does not mean that there is a clear domination of one force over another. Printmaking and the multiple images are also helpful in questioning or troubling the empire. So these are 2 images reproduced from the book El Primer Nueva Crónica y Buen Gobierno, or the First New Chronicles and Good Government, written by Felipe Guamanpoma de Ayala. This was published in 1615 by a Quechua nobleman. So that's a Quechua. Quechua is indigenous to what is present-day Peru. This book chronicled the life in colonized Andes in what is now present-day Peru. Guamanpoma collected stories not just of mythologies of his own people, but complaints against abuses by the colonizers. You can see in these 2 illustrations by Guamanpoma of the Spaniards instructing the native to flog the fellow native. And on the left is a man, and on the right is a woman. So this was supposed to be a gift to King Philip III. This was in the hope perhaps the king, once he reads this, will intervene and instruct the colonizers or the officers to improve colonial relations. It is unfortunate that we do not know if the king received this or even read this. But for me, this is perfect an example on how the colonized can use the tools and technology of the colonizer to trouble, to question the powers that be. Circumventing powers in printmaking can also be demonstrated by the Japanese ukiyo-e in the other side of the world. This is Mishima, Morning Mist, by the sublime printmaker Utagawa Hiroshige in 1834. Take a look at the deft use of color and of pressure to simulate a fog or a morning mist. The amazing rendering of depth of field can be shown in the incredible details of the foreground and while as you recede, the figures become obscure. Hiroshige printed several scenes of Japan in the throes of a shift or a change. For centuries, under the shoguns or the shogunate, Japanese print culture catered to a growing middle class of merchants. Known as the images of the floating world, ukiyo-e intersects with philosophical treatises of Buddhist temporariness of life. As such, fleeting moments are the currency of the ukiyo-e. I mentioned that this was at interesting junctures of global history wherein the ukiyo-e prints are very vital. One of them is that the initial audience for the ukiyo-e are the merchant Japanese class who are now expanding their influence. This particular print caters to the sites of pilgrimage. People who can afford to go to such pilgrimage are the middle class. And prints are an interesting implement of power struggle between the middle class and the shoguns. So there was a doctrine by the shoguns because the middle class were becoming very wealthy and powerful and influential, which the shogunates and the shoguns did not like. So the shoguns imposed a doctrine regarding there should be no ostentatious displays of wealth. You cannot show that you are wealthy. So to circumvent that, so instead of buying expensive scroll paintings, porcelain sculpture, the middle classes bought the ukiyo-e prints. The merchant class resorted to the cheaper ukiyo-e to appease the envious shoguns. This print, mind you, was made in 1834. This was a few decades later, before ukiyo-e created a splash and a shift in European art history. Precisely because of the Japanese merchant class that had extensive exchange and international global trade at a time when Japan still had closed borders, the ukiyo-e reached Europe. The ukiyo-e traveled through the shipping lanes and inspired many artists. Many ended up in the collections of various artists that were compelled to leave the mainstream academic art. So what was mainstream in France at that time were high classicism, idealism, conservative notions ruled the art world in Europe. This was broken by the prints of Japan. The artists who saw the ukiyo-e prints were fascinated in the bold graphical depiction of the everyday. The ukiyo-e shifted many of these European artists into Impressionism, which is part of the foregrounding of modern art, which has influenced generations into the 20th century. Speaking of the modern and 20th century, this ukiyo-e print by, unfortunately, an unknown artist showcases the introduction of modern technology, particularly modern railway, to Japan. Again, this is an example on how printmaking can document history. I am showing this because imagine the sheer changes of society. Modernization is a folding of time and space. In this print, the image of the steam train is indication of things to come. The train can cover vast distances into shorter times. So this is a moment at the cusp of change, which is a massive one. But the ukiyo-e or printmaking is still there. In fact, printmaking never really went away. And now I shall jump to contemporary printmaking. So this is by Wilmer Wilson IV, entitled Self-Portrait as Henry Box Brown. This is an archival print and also a performance art. So this is what I like about contemporary printmaking, in which it is not just focused on materiality, but now focused on techniques and implementations of like performance like this. Why? So this is the artist covering himself with postage stamps and then having his photo taken. What I like about this artwork, this particular print, it is informed by history, which I think all contemporary artists, if you want to be relevant, you should be able to have a discussion with the shifts of history. This was inspired by a story of an African American slave back in the 1800s who hid himself in a box, pasted postage stamps, and, literally mailed himself to freedom. So, this is very important for me because people always say we should move on from the past. The thing is, the past is still there and it's impacting us now. So in this particular print, particularly in American politics, you have some racial politics that are still at, having contentious parameters now. This is an American print, but a print from an old photo from 1960s. This was made into a screen print in 2012. The artist said that he wanted to showcase the achievements of the Latino, Latina, Latinx to the children of today to know that they are bearers of revolt and resistance. So these are labor resistance. The guy in the middle, the one with the red flannel, that's Cesar Chavez. Now, I picked this particular print because the guy on top of Cesar Chavez with a mustache, that's a Pinoy. That's a Filipino-American Larry Itliong. So what I like about this is also a document, not just a document, but a hearkening of a pride that should be present, informed by the past. And printmaking is still very much a big deal here in America, particularly this one in 2018, in which this was during Trump's time, and this was a depiction of sanctuary cities, in which a lot of the refugees who seek shelter or refuge here in America are given sanctuary in particular cities. And this was also done by Latino artist, Polima Marichal. Santuario. The thing is, again, let me reiterate that movements are not just revolutionary or political. It can be very quiet. Now, I am going to close the presentation with two prints by Pinoys, by Filipinos. The first one is this monoprint by Mitzi Aguilar Reyes, the current Dean of UP Fine Arts. What I like about particularly this one, this is very much using everyday stuff, or at least remnants of nature. She collected leaves and then made a monoprint out of this. But what I particularly like about this, she made a monoprint in reaction to a poem. So this is one thing about being a contemporary artist. You are also open to collaborations. In this particular work, she was inspired by the poet Maria Isabel Garcia in her work Considerata. And let me just read you a stanza of it. As we gaze at the sky that houses our planets, membrane, whether at moonshine or sunshine, we lock eyes with a universe that embraces all there is. The cookery of stars, bicycling couples, singing and giggling thoughts, friends in a laughter huddle, the staggering beauty of underwater life, echoed by celestial pools of light. There's this particular line in this stanza. We lock eyes with a universe that embraces all there is. That is, for me, the role of a contemporary printmaker. You are not God. You do not subscribe to the romantic notions that you are an artist and you have to suffer. You are part of a membrane or a network. You have to engage in society. Speaking of engagement of society, my last slide comes from the newly minted 13 artist, Mars Bugawad, in which he printed on, I think these were banana leaves, in which he shot, took a video shot, and also like there's a time displacement in which the prints crumpled. So the question here now is print only viable if it is only laminated, fixed? This is what I like about these two artists. There is a queering of printmaking. And by queering, it is not just by gender. Although, let me pause. Let me say that a huge chunk of printmaking history in the Philippines was thanks to women. Women printmakers in the 60s and 70s were the ones who actually made it more viable to be printmakers here. And this certain queering is not just gender. Queering is also the way you approach materials, the way you approach techniques. And that for me is just fascinating that we are now still witnessing how printmaking can be very much present and not stuck in the past. So thank you for having me. And I shall stop sharing my screen. Right.
Hindi ko alam kung saan ako mag-start. Pero I think what really um, really gripped me the most is yung how powerful printmaking as a tool is, and how ironic na at some point in time it was used to tighten the grip of colonialism towards yung mga towards its rule. And also ironic na at some point in time nagagamit din siya for self-expression and to speak power to speak truth to power, like what you presented, si Katie Kovitz. Ang ganda, sobrang ganda, very compelling. And hindi lang siya drama parang talagang nararamdaman mo yung suffering that she was depicting towards, or she was depicting sa art niya. And sa context pala ito ni Hitler, sobrang gosh. yung biggest fascist that we all know. Ayun, so yeah, printmaking is really a very very powerful tool. Sobrang I'm so amazed. Sobra. And super amazing presentation, Chong. Super. Salamat. Thank you for preparing for us.
Wala naman.
Thank you,
Mabuhay.
Chong.
Mabuhay mga printmakers.
Mabuhay, yes.
Mabuhay.
Ayan. Thank you very much to our two speakers. May mga pumapasok na questions, no? Sana ready na ang ating panel. Siguro we can have Sir Pandy back. Ayan. So, we already have some questions. These were posted commented on Facebook, no? Pwede na tayo mag-start. Let's start with the first one. This one is from J.S. Yang. Meron din po bang printmaking practice na political ang laman bago ang Marcos or martial law era? Anyone can answer po. Ayun po yung question. Ayun na. Ayan. No. Sir Pandy, wala kang mic yata.
Ayan, meron na?
Yes, sir.
Okay. During the early 1900s ata, si Jorge Pineda had a print lithograph. He was a very good lithographer, Jorge Pineda, and he made sketches of the outstanding illustrious Filipinos. And it's actually a euphemism for revolutionary figures. And it was quite popular. And during the Japanese time, there were posters. And during the early days of democracy, there was the free press, who used a lot of illustrations by Demetrio Diego. He was a very famous, and Gat, another guy, Gat, yeah, Bigat si Gat. Anyway, that's as far as I know before martial law came in.
Thank you, Sir Pandy. Gat Bonton was one of the most productive
Right.
political cartoonists back
Yeah.
in, I think, another
Early 50s.
early 50s, but back in 1900, I think 1903, 1900, I'm not sure, I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I'm sure this is before UP. The UP was established 1908. So this was before UP. There was a satirical publication called Lipang Kalabaw. And a lot of the artists there who use nom de plume, they made fun of the outgoing Spanish colonizers and the incoming American overlords. And this was used, I think, engraving, woodcut as well. So, and that was just one episode. Sir Pandy mentioned a lot. So, but the thing is, I think the point is, it was during martial law in which printmaking really uh, not just peaked but became normalized for a lot of artists because it was one, cheaper, two, it was
Mm.
easier to field a lot of prints. Medyo mahirap mag-transport ng oil painting. Ang mga
Exactly.
prints, pwede mo na lang ilagay sa dingding takbo.
Right.
So, yun.
Tapos may follow-up question, no, from JS Young as well. Post-martial law, meron pa rin po bang mga artists or collectives na nagpapatuloy sa paglikha ng mga political graphics or prints?
Yeah. The concerned artists of the Philippines, I think, one of those that come out with this, yung mga social realist, sina Neil, sina Egay, sina B-Boy.
So meron naman yun, nag-e-exist yun. Siguro
Yeah.
if you try to explore din. Yes, Chong.
Yeah, I would also like to extend. It's not just printmaking, but because of technology and the multiple images, nakakatuwa ngayon for me. I am a political cartoonist, but talagang bow down ako ngayon sa mga gumagawa ng memes, ng mga online cartoons. These are all descendants
Right.
of the great satirical printmakers. And for me, ito talaga ang kaya nga hindi ko maiwan-iwan ng Facebook, although talaga like a collapse of civilization. But the memes in Facebook are like they're wealthy for me in terms of indicators of what the emotions are. So I think that political graphics is still very much alive.
Tapos ngayon kasi, no, hindi mo na kailangan yung print mismo eh. Nakikita mo na rin siya sa social media.
Right.
Kayo ngayon, nasa
Oo.
Facebook kayo, di ba? Nandyan na rin siya eh.
Mas mabilis siyang lumalakbay. Like, tapos mas malaki yung mileage niya ngayon dahil digital siya.
Yan yung isang punto kung bakit naging sikat ang print centuries ago. Mabilis ang lakbay niya. Compact and mobile. Kaya nga, very much important. I think Sir Patrick also mentioned that among the first prints were maps. So, ngayon,
And,
Sir
can
Pandy, go
I
ahead.
add something to that? I think several years ago when we presented our case sa international court regarding our territory, Exhibit A was or is the map of Murillo, and it was engraved by Nicolas de la Cruz Bagay. And you see the importance of print in our political situation. It was a print, an engraving, not a painting, not a sculpture that described our possession, the islands. They were all there in that map, and that's why when the judges saw that and the Chinese could not present anything, they awarded us that case. See the importance of print. Now the funny thing is that the government still refuses to acknowledge printmaking as a major medium. Why? Because they've already given national recognition to cartoonists, to stage designers, to fiction writers, and yet they never awarded anything on printmaking. That's why I think Rodriguez should be a national artist because of that, or Rod Paras Perez, or whoever. Basta, it's about time that the government recognizes printmaking as a major art medium alongside painting and sculpture.
Agree.
Chong,
So do we
anything
have
you
an...
want to add? Parang feeling ko may gustong i-add si Chong.
Oo nga.
I'm good.
May nakita ako.
Naging DB or naging tweetams. I'm good.
Okay. Siguro,
So,
move
do we
tayo,
have the
Anton, sa next.
question? Wala pa? So,
Next question, the one from Mela.
okay.
Sige, go on.
What would be your advice to artists who also want to join the political and social discourse? Anyone who wants to answer this?
What's stopping you?
Binabalik yung tanong.
That's a good
What's
answer,
stopping
Sir
you? I mean,
Pandy.
we've all joined somehow. Basta
Yeah.
gawa nga ng gawa. If you feel like criticizing the status quo through your print, go ahead.
Alam mo, sa panahon ngayon na ginagamit ang mga linyang ganito, opinion ko lang. Mga ganyan. Anyone can have opinions, but not everyone can have informed opinions.
Right.
So if you want to join the political and social discourse, then you have to work for it by reading, by analyzing, and by also
Yeah.
engaging with the several social issues. Nakakapagod siya, sa totoo lang. Minsan gusto ko na lang manood ng K-pop or whatever. Pero hindi. Kasi kailangan, some people really need to focus on the issue because people have this notion na kung kritiko ka, hater ka, wala kang kwenta. That's not true. If you are critical, that is because you care so much for this nation. Gusto mo mag-improve yung nation na to, that's why you're critical. To be a critic is an act of love. That is the true radical love. So if you're going to do this discourse, be ready for a lot of obstacles and a lot of people say, anong alam mo? Mga ganyan. Di ikaw na lang maging presidente, mga ganyan kagaguhan.
Yeah, I agree. Parang kailangan mo din maging responsible. Maging responsible as a critic na dapat well-informed ka before, putting out something dun sa out there.
Ayan.
So next
Okay.
question.
Nasagot na yung question na yan ni Melay, Miss Melay. Next question natin from Sir Ricky.
Si Ricky, yeah.
Mahaba-haba po ito, no? What was the mode of distribution for the prints made during the martial law? Were these exhibited and sold through galleries or distributed through other means like newspapers or journals, traded or given away? And who were the main audiences?
during the mid 70s, the PAP then had a workshop and gallery somewhere in the Dakota area. What's it now? Anyway, along Malate, and it was a place where tourists would pass by. Malapit kasi sa ano yan tourist spot. Somewhere in Ermita, yung workshop nila. And
Sir, sa
it
may
was
Harrison
beside-
Plaza ba yun?
No. Before
Iba pa?
that, it was ano yun property ng the one who owns Santa Clara, si Adiel Arevalo, had a place there, and right beside it is the frame shop of Philip, yung gallery frames. There was gallery frames, and then at the back of that was the PAP workshop. And every day, they would bring in a lot of sales, Kasi ang dami yung namimili yung mga OFWs nga. And that's a tourist area. And sometimes mga expats would go there and buy. Mga Amerikano namimili. And they made a lot of money. Sina Lito Mayo, si Orly, si Ben Cab, si Tiny, si Iliana Lee, ang dami. Si Benji. Benji is the right person to tell that story of how prints were being sold right and left doon. So yun, PAP had its own gallery right there in the tourist spot. So nakakabenta sila.
Ang sarap naman nun, sir. Sinasadya talaga ng mga patrons.
Kaya lang, wala yung workshop because they had plenty of money. They were always gambling. They were always, going to bars. Wala rin.
Anong klaseng bars?
Okay, bago tayo umabot sa ibang kwento.
Sabi si Jess Flores, si Benji, yung during those times, they were really, ang daming ginawa nila. Kapaulit-ulit, sina Imet. Yun.
Ano lang ako sa ship ni Sir Pandy kasi bars, tas biglang Sir Benji, tsaka Jess Flores.
They were the ones who were telling me because wala ako yun kinikwento nila what it was to be there in that workshop, and then all of a sudden it closed kasi during mga 1983 yung mga organizations, they all kind of naglaylo lahat sila. Wala na yung AAP, wala na yung PAP. Kasi na yung tao yung either you're for McCoy or not. Ganun ang situation yun And that's why during the time McCoy called for yung elections. I think the following year. But even before that, talagang magulo na. And everybody was preoccupied about either staging a revolution or they were out to get McCoy's head. Ano pa?
Ayan.
Next question. Meron ba?
Next question, yes.
Besides disseminating this social
Okay. So, from Noel Soler Quizon, besides disseminating these social realities through art, history, and education, how else can the print medium be instrumental in reproving the current revisionism proliferating among our young learners today? Anyone?
Si Chong. Sagutin ni Chong yan.
That's a very important question considering that memory right now is very flexible.
Yeah.
So, one thing that came to my mind when this question was posted was we have to take a look at the curriculum of our schools, particularly the K to 12. I think there is art education and art therapy included in the curriculum. So printmaking can be part of it and also can be a bridge not just to an art class but also to civics or social sciences. It is very much important for us to take a look at our own art history because printmaking is very much present in our art history. So, ang issue kasi dito is pedagogical approach. Ang problema ko naman, and this is just my personal issue, is a lot of the educators are more into standardized exams and results. And for K to 12, which is also not just K to 12, also in college, is outcomes based education, which is fine by me. But if you have to focus on production, then you also have to know to focus on the context, the history. Maraming mga schools ngayon, I think even our curriculum, I'm not sure though, but they have diminished the role of not just art but also history. Kaya nga ito ang nangyayari sa atin ngayon because of the lack of exposure to communication, critical thinking, and also to history. Maraming nagugoyo ngayon. Sabihin lang, ay nakita ko sa Facebook, totoo to. So, ang dali-dali ngayon na mag-Photoshop. Nakaka-deep fake image na. Pwede na mag-record ng kung ano-ano and then transform your face into somebody else. Technology is fast. The thing is, critical thinking is very slow and difficult and people don't like it. So I guess, Sir Noel, the bigger approach to your question is the Philippine educational system ready to recalibrate itself to produce thinkers rather than industrial workers for the globalized market? So that alone, that is my issue. And world peace.
There is also the dark side of printmaking, and that is especially during the Edo period. When during the Edo period, printmaking was very everybody had prints. You know, they were buying it. One of the dark side of printmaking is the one they call shunga art. It's about erotic themes in prints, and it became so popular that the emperor decided to ban it. And if you remember, there's that line says, "You want to go up and see my etchings?" that means also that there were etchings that were erotic in nature, Kama Sutra, ganyan. And so because Prince had a lot of audience, you know, and it was accessible. Ang daming mga sexy prints. Yon. That's the dark side of printmaking. Right, Chong? You've seen a lot of shunga art.
Shunga art, you call it dark side, sir. I think darkness is relative. So, some people have a distaste for pornography. I am not one of those. And I would like to express that because of erotic art, and then to coincide with political art, there are some amazing prints, dark or dirty prints, before the French Revolution about King Louis and Marie Antoinette.
Yeah.
And this is the only way people can have power in which they project their frustrations over the monarchy by using art. Some people might say it's pornographic. I would say it's a socially relevant catharsis for
Right,
some
right.
people because they cannot speak out.
Yeah.
So what they do is to,
To
depict
make,
the
yeah,
king and the queen in really sordid acts.
right.
So like I said, sir, darkness is relative.
Okay. So, again, we encourage our viewers to keep on posting their questions. So, let's move to the next question, no? Kanina pa natin discuss na art can be a social commentary. Pero bakit ano yung nag-lead sa inyo na mag-focus po sa printmaking as your preferred medium?
I think I was a born printmaker.
Wow.
When I was young, I used to look at the yung bang mga photo engraving cuts. I was in grade 5 and my auntie was working in Manila Bulletin. And I would go to her office and look at all the cuts, yung mga photo engraving cuts. And I would print them. And every time I passed by a printing press, I love the smell of the ink. And when I was introduced to printmaking, it was through Mrs. Dance in Ateneo grade school art class. And then she brought me to the place of Manuel Rodriguez. And I saw the silk screens there, the lithos. And it spoke to me. The medium spoke to me and said, "Hey, come, I want you to dirty your hands with the ink." And so that's why I say that maybe I was really a natural born printmaker because I love the idea of printing. And in 1964, I won first prize in prints, first prize and third prize. And since then, it was all prints. I got my scholarship in Spain, and then later to France. But the lesson I learned was that it's a lesson in humility. Every time I think that I know something about printmaking, I was so proud of it. There would be something new that I had to learn. And when I went to Spain, I had to forget everything that I learned here, and I had to go back again. I had to do the classic etchings. And the nice thing about studying in Spain is that in the workshop we had the authentic prints of Rembrandt and Goya. And so when you're doing your aquatint, right in front of you is the work of a master, and then you would compare. It was a model for you. And these prints were screwed with the glass. They were screwed on the wall, and I learned a lot. And then I went to Paris, and I thought, I know everything. And then it was there that I found out how the French printmakers were printing, and believe me, it was like they were dancing. They would print, and I was so amazed, the way they handled the paper, and then I said, wow. After learning all that, I said it's time to go back to the Philippines and share my knowledge. And then in 1989, I was sent to Japan, to Fukuoka, to make a print workshop. And it was there again that I found out that kulang pa rin yung alam ko. There were a lot of things that I still have to learn. So for me, printmaking is also a lesson in humility, that there is still things that you think you know, but there is still things that you have to learn from. Yun.
Okay. How about ikaw, Chong? Bakit printmaking?
Ah,
Magandang
mas,
question kasi yun, no?
yeah. First, I was in love with comics and cartoons ever since. I remember back in 1993 when I was in high school in Canada. That was my very first introduction to printmaking in Miss Gallagher's art class. It was Lino cut pan tawag doon. And I fell in love with it. And the thing is, when I went back to the Philippines, then pa in love, but I finished high school in Cebu, then went to Diliman. Uh, I I did not have access to materials. I did not know na available siya sa Pilipinas at that time. What's funny is what made me rekindle my love for printmaking was 2011. So almost 20 years later, when I just decided to join the workshops at the Association of Pinoy Printmakers. And fortunately for me, and perhaps unfortunately for the group, I never left. So, and I really love the camaraderie of printmaking. Uh, I think there was this one talk before us about printmaking being a solo art work. It could be, but in my experience, it's not. I remember working hours in the studio. Anton is there. Sometimes Sir Pandy's there. And when Sir Pandy's there, good talk. And also, and no, not just that. And also, a
Insights.
reminder on why we do this. So that's why one thing for me why I love printmaking. It's the social aspect of it. Personally, I also love the sound of the ink and the smell of the ink and the sense of accomplishment when I pull the print and the print is beautiful. That okay, it's not like childbirth. I will never experience that, but it's a sense of accomplishment for me. So, I mean, for those who are watching, and maybe after the pandemic is over, if there are workshops with Association of Pinoy Printmakers, I think you should join if you're thinking about it. I've met some really great people there, and some actually great friends.
Malaking bagay talaga yung AP Studio 'no? Halos lahat
Yes.
kasi ng mga bago ngayon, lalo yung mga bata-bata pa, wow, kasama kunyari ako dun. Ah, dun kasi nagsimula talaga, 'di ba?
Mm-mm.
I think the AP, the printmakers, are the only group that's surviving now, because wala nang AAP, wala nang whatever group. The most active now is the printmakers, because you need teamwork.
That's true.
Yeah.
And
Marami
one
kayo.
complaint. I mean,
There's always that group dynamics.
yeah, but Sir Pandy, I remember this was years ago. The only thing that I am complaining about is it is so focused on in Manila. What about the other cities, other
Ah,
provinces? But
when
now I heard there are, reaching
no.
out to Dumaguete
In
as well.
the mid 1990s, when we were still in NCCA, we had a program that went from the top to the bottom, and I was part of that. We went all over, and we had that small the small etching press, and we went all over. We were able to identify the groups, and each group fed us, housed us, and then by the end of that program, NCCA awarded PAP then with this tanglaw ng something. It was a big award for that group. So
But
it showed
this
that
was when, sir, 1990s.
mga ganon, mga ganon.
So ang
Si
problem
Raul,
is it wasn't sustained.
si
So
Raul
sana
Isidro pa
masustain
niya ng
siya.
president eh. Yeah. And I think it was Ambi. Ambi was part of NCCA then. And then when they awarded us the trophy or something, we all went there on stage, And we felt like, do you know what a drop of water becomes when it reaches the river? It becomes the river. Hindi na siya a drop of water, and that's the feeling na you're part of, this big, big, large picture of printmaking. Yan.
And also, I would just like to add, yung initiative ng project ng Limbag Kamay, which is for us to identify fabricators who will be producing small tabletop etching presses for us, and then later on magno-nominate tayo ng mga as AP, magno-nominate tayo ng mga artist groups or ng mga artists or art educators around the country para i-donate yung mga tabletop presses na to. Kung school man ito, siguro pwede tayong magpa-fabricate ng malalaki. As of now, meron na kaming na-identify, tsaka actually gumawa na siya ng prototype. Yung isa gumawa na ng prototype. Ipopost to later on within this event. Dalawa na fabricators, and as of now, yung nakalikom na ang Limbag Kamay ng around roughly about 240,000 para dito sa initiative na to. So, I think magiging malaking tulong yon sa pag-disseminate ng printmaking as an art practice within the country.
There could also be a contest, and then ang award is that press.
Pwede din, yeah.
Oo,
Sali
That
ako.
would be a nice...
Oo.
Yeah, okay.
Gusto ko ng press.
Perma press. Free the press.
Okay,
Ayun, I think we still have time for one last question.
okay.
Meron ba from the comment section?
Siguro yung last question na lang natin is just to basically to wrap up na rin, no? In your opinion po, both of you, what do you think is the present and hopefully the future, no, of printmaking in terms of our topic, no, printmaking and activism? Ano po yung nakikita nyo?
I'm very bullish about what's happening. Itong mga video conferences natin, I think this is a healthy sign that printmaking is alive and well. And not only that we are now connected to the world. We are now joined by our fellow printmakers from Japan, from Asia, from America. Ano na tayo, global na tayo ngayon, yung connection
True.
natin. And will wonder never cease. So tuloy-tuloy na ito.
One thing I really love about printmaking is not just the sound of the ink or the smell of the ink or the look of the print after. It's printmaking, in my personal experience, is one of the most flexible and adaptable medium. I've shown in my presentation that printmaking is now extended towards animation. There's this one exhibit I saw at Washington, D.C. a few months ago in which prints are now augmented reality. So there's a print there, and then you just put on your mobile phone, and then that print will just come alive virtually. So that is, it moves, it has sounds. So it's in the future, print will be literally immersive. And it will augment our reality. And I think that's very amazing because people have been saying, oh, printmaking, that's an old school art form. It's dying. It's not. It's very much alive.
Yeah.
We are surrounded by prints, and we will be surrounded by prints for many years to come. In fact, printmaking is adapting and into 3D printing. Logically, all this technology is just at the feet of printmaking for printmaking to augment itself, connect itself there. It's very exciting. And that's why I will never leave because printmaking is never boring.
Yeah.
I'll see you in the future.
Oh, may future.
In the past, artists were doing prints on cave. Remember yung
Yeah.
kamay?
Yes.
Kamay. Yeah.
Yon.
So,
Yeah.
Sir Pandy earlier and in his earlier writings indicated printmaking is indicative of being human. So perhaps printmaking will be gone when we stop being humans.
Yung fingerprint, footprint, and then words like that's impressive. Yung pressure, Yeah,
No,
it's integrated already in our language, the idea of prints. For your memory etched forever in your
yeah.
in your brain.
And for you to
These
be
are
recognized, yeah, for you to be
These are
recognized,
printmaking terms. Yeah,
you have to make an impression.
exactly.
So printmaking will never go away.
Oh, naniniwala rin ako doon, hindi talaga siya mawawala, nandiyan lang siya forever. At may future ang printmaking, lalo dun sa katulad ngayon, no, this is proof enough. May mga nanonood sa atin, may followers tayo, and I'm sure madaming audience sa audience natin na nagtatanong, paano kami magiging matututo ng printmaking? I'm sure may mga ganong questions sa mind nyo. Kanina na-mention yung AP studio. That studio is very welcoming. So, kung pwede na tayong magkita-kita ulit, punta kayo doon. Magkikita-kita tayo doon.
Right.
Makikita nyo kami. Ayan.
Yeah.
Kwentuhan lang. Ayan. Malaking bagay yung initiative din itong Limbag Kamay. Ayan. So, would you like to add anything else?
No, I would like to thank the organizers for staging these series of lectures. As Sir Pandy said, this is proof that printmaking is very much alive. So thank you po sa mga nag-organize ito. Thank you sa ating commentators today, Hershey and Anton. And thank you, Sir Pandy, for sharing your thoughts. Those are very important inroads on why printmaking should still remain vital.
Thank you, Hershey. Thank you, Anton. Thank you.
Ayan. Anton?
So, ngayon, so we would like you to please, pa-plug lang namin yung mga accounts namin for you guys to follow, which are, for Cartelino, it's cartelino.art in IG. For Pinoy Printmakers, it's Pinoy Printmakers _ in IG. On Facebook, it's Association of Pinoy Printmakers. And then, yung Fundación Sanso naman, it's Fundación _ Sanso on IG.
At syempre, wag nating makakalimutan, no? Cartelino.com, naka-post pa rin yung works ng mga printmakers natin for Limbag Kamay. Hanggang tomorrow yun. So that's www.cartelino.com. And then additionally, do not forget, the oil paint store also offers discount code. Nakikita natin yan sa Facebook group natin. If you want to buy something or you want to start printmaking, yung mga materials are also on sale specifically para sa mga materials for printmaking. And then, ano pa ba? For later, Anton, we have that event.
Yes, it's so please get yourself registered for later stock. It's gonna be Ambia Banyo, Johari Sahid, and Kitty Kong. Ano nga yun?
Kitty Kong,
Hard to say.
Silong Watanotay.
Yes.
So Kitty Kong is from Thailand. Sayid is from Malaysia.
So it's gonna be a talk by the Ateneo Art Gallery within dito sa Limbag Kamay event. And ayun, we hope to see you there.
Teka, shout out tayo. IG ni Chong. Paki-shout out naman dyan. Yes, follow on IG.
Ano nga yung IG mo, Chong?
Art. Ayan. Chong
Go Art.
Yes!
Yes.
Ayan. So, follow nyo na rin sa IG. And of course, yun nga, no, yung mga social media handles natin for the different organizations or groups na nag-coordinate for this event. Ayan.
Yeah. Oo. So yeah, we would like to thank Cartolino Fundación Senso and his AP. So again, my name is Anton Villaruel.
And we like to thank our speakers, Chong and Sir Pandy, for today. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I'm
salamat.
Hershey.
Salamat.
I'm Hershey Malinis.
And
Maraming salamat po.
salamat.